Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate you attending our monthly supplier forums. And again, the intent is to always hold these on the third Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So please plan to check in with us as well. This week, we're looking to go through a few different topics with you folks. And in addition, we added some invoice demonstration time with Michelle Bustos, who is now transferred over to our accounting groups to support Lanel, but she comes from supplier management. I'm sure you'll all recognize her, and she's going to walk you through some tips that you can have for invoicing. We know a lot of you, based upon the flow of emails and phone calls we get, struggle sometimes to understand that process, and we're here to make it better for you and to assist you as much as possible. And we do have a couple other presenters going as well. We have Vince Coretti coming from our environmental groups to discuss some air quality requirements for all of our on-site subcontractors. We also have Karen Medea, and she's going to be talking to you about some of the technical assistance that is available through her organization. And we really appreciate you coming on in, and look forward to continuing to work with you as we continue to roll out Ariba successfully, and your partnership means a lot to us. And with that, I will let Vince take it away. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vince Coretti. I'm in the EPC CP group, Environmental Compliance Programs, part of the Air Quality Compliance team. And today we're going to talk about air quality requirements for subcontractors and suppliers. So next, let's go to the first slide if we can, please. So I want to give a quick overview about the Lanel Air Quality Program. So Lanel operates under the Air Quality Title V operating permit that includes approximately 40 sources and facility-wide conditions and emission limits. Our sources range from generators and boilers to berylliums and degreaser and asphalt plant, power plants. We have all kinds of sources here at the lab. As you know, Exhibit F includes sections with air quality requirements for subcontractors. And just kind of a side note, the current number, I believe, is Exhibit F44. And I believe a new version is coming out, version 5, in May. And they're going to basically restructure it, and I believe it'll be Exhibit F49. So just something to look for. So here at Lanel, all of our new or modified projects are reviewed through the integrated review tool, and that captures all kinds of environmental programs, cultural, stormwater, bio, all kinds of interested folks can voice their concern for a project going through this system. So next slide. So I want to kind of narrow it down to some common air quality issues that subcontractors may face as they work here on site. There's 3 things in particular we're going to go over today. One of them is bringing fuel burning and particulate generating equipment on site. So I'm thinking, small little portable generators, boilers, heaters, different things like that could be fuel burning, or crushers, chippers, concrete batch plants, different things like that may generate particulates. We'll also go over asbestos notifications for any work that involves demolition or renovation projects. And then finally, we'll go over refrigerant containing equipment. Anytime refrigerants are removed, there are requirements there to follow. So yeah, let's move into it in the next slide, please. So we're going to start with fuel burning and particulate equipment. So this equipment may require air permitting from New Mexico Environment Department prior to the installation or use. And here are some examples of the equipment that I mentioned earlier. Something important to note is that the subcontractor is responsible for obtaining all the necessary permits for their equipment and providing copies to the STR. And something that people sometimes get caught up on is it's important to note that air permitting is not required for your mobile construction equipment like backhoes and forklifts and all these things that may burn fuel and generate particulates. But that is an exemption according to NMED. Same with temporary portable sources. Air permitting is not required for those as long as they're on site for less than 12 months. And if they are, if you plan to have them on site for more than 12 months, then we'll have to evaluate for permitting. And permitting could take 9 to 12 months and cost around $25,000. So it's a bit of a process. And so the next slide, please. So the sub should provide a list to the STR of all their equipment that they plan on bringing on site for the project, and to use attachment F16-1, major equipment declaration. And if you have any questions about this topic, here's some contact info. Reach out to the STR and they can get with us. And like I said earlier, it could take about a year to get a permit. So it's good to get this in as early as possible. Next slide. So next, the next topic is asbestos notification. So air quality regulations require 10-day advance notifications to NMED for all demolition projects. And a demo project is one that involves load-bearing structures, whether asbestos is present or not. And also for renovation projects where asbestos-containing material is expected to be disturbed. And the state set a kind of a threshold limit, as you can see in that third bullet, 260 linear feet or greater, 160 square feet or greater, or 35 cubic feet or greater. So they give you some units to choose from. Also, 10-day is required for all roof projects, roof replacement, whether asbestos is expected to be present or not. And an important note is that this air quality notification is in addition to and separate from the LANL-RCRA permit demolition notification requirements. So the next slide. So our last topic we're going to talk about today is refrigerants. So LANL is required by federal law to document the proper maintenance, service, and disposal of refrigeration equipment. And the next bullet here is specific to all Department of Energy facilities. And it's that refrigerant at LANL is government-owned property and must be offered to the Department of Defense prior to considering any other disposal or recycle option. And so we actually recently had an issue with a subcontractor shipping a refrigerant off-site, and they could not recover it. And so ultimately we had to issue an environmental citation because it was not offered to the DOD. So this is just something that I wanted to kind of make a note of, that it could catch people off guard because it is, like I said, it's a DOE kind of requirement. So all work on refrigerants must be performed by EPA certified technicians. So if we're using LANL's in-house techs, they're all EPA certified, and they'll ensure that all these federal requirements and everything else is met. So that's kind of the safest route to go. If they're not used, then we recommend reaching out to EPC, CP for further guidance and direction on all the steps that need to be taken. And so the next slide. So this slide, as you can see, just some contact info for refrigerants, asbestos, and kind of everything else that you may have questions for. And so I guess at this point I can open it up for questions. And if anyone doesn't have any, then thank you for giving me the time to go over our air quality compliance group here at LANL.
Well, thanks so much, Vince. We appreciate it. And all your contact information here will be included in our presentation when we post it on site as well to our supplier resources page. So if any of you need any of these specific names or contacts, we'll definitely have them available for you. So thank you again, Vince. And next, we'll move on to our next presenter with Teresa providing, no, it wasn't Teresa. Who's doing the presentation? I think Teresa Rivera is unavailable.
Yeah, it's Karen Medina tomorrow.
Karen, okay, great. I apologize. I should have written down the name. I apologize, Karen.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
So no, great. If you would like to take it away and speak to our folks, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure, I'm happy to. I'm glad to be here. This presentation won't take 30 minutes, but I think it'll give you a great overview of PTAC. I work for New Mexico PTAC. PTAC is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center for anyone who maybe doesn't know what PTAC is. Our program manager in New Mexico is Therese Rivera. So just wanted to let you know that. Okay, next slide. The actual overarching program for all the PTACs in the United States is called PTAP. That is the program. It was authorized by Congress in 1985. So it's been around for a long time. The program is grant funded through the Department of Defense. The total reason this program was developed was to expand the number of businesses that are capable of participating in government contracts. So any of you out there that have ever engaged in government contracting, you know it can be a little bit tedious. It's not like commercial contracting. There's more rules and hoops and things, and that is why PTACs were developed. So we could help small businesses. Our services are free too, by the way. So as I said, we can help with federal, state, and local government contracting. It does not just have to be federal. We help with prime contractors. We can do industry days with prime contractors, large ones. I did one just a few weeks ago with a large prime called Fluor Mission Solutions. I don't know if any of you are familiar with them. Some of you may be. But that is to bring together smaller businesses with these larger prime contractors who are looking to do business with smaller businesses. We do things like that. Also, I want to tell you that the PTAP has been managed by Defense Logistics Agency, and that is switching hands a little bit. DLA is under DOD, but DLA will not be the ones managing the program anymore. It's going to be directly under the Office of Small Business Development under DOD. And so the director of the Office of Small Business Development, who is Farouk Mitha, I hope I've said that right. Some of you have probably heard of his name too. He is going to be the person overseeing the PTAP program. So we're excited about that too, because I think they have more things planned for us in the future, and that's okay with us. We are looking forward to that. Okay, so next slide. Again, the mission of all PTACs, but also New Mexico PTAC, is to counsel, train, and assist New Mexico business owners to obtain government contracts. And that the whole purpose of that, it's going to help the economic growth in New Mexico. This is the same for every PTAC in every other state as well, which, by the way, I believe every single state in the U.S. has a PTAC. There might be one. I think there's one state that does not. I'm not sure why, but PTACs are in every state. We're even out in Guam and Puerto Rico. So just to let you know, if you're not from New Mexico, you're from some other state, your state's almost sure to have a PTAC. And if you're here and you're moving somewhere else, you can find your PTAC in that new state where you're going to. So in New Mexico, the PTAC program is also funded by the state of New Mexico, and it is administered by the Santa Fe Community College. This is typical in other states as well, that some college or university administers the PTAC in that state. In other words, they are just the financial overseer managing the grant. So Santa Fe Community College is our manager of our grant in New Mexico. You'll find in other states, it's either some college, university, or sometimes a state economic development department. So that's very, very typical. So I'm not actually an employee of Department of Defense. I'm actually an employee of Santa Fe Community College because they manage our grant. But the entire grant is overseen by the Department of Defense. Next slide. Now, the New Mexico PTAC has several offices scattered throughout the state. We cover the entire state. Even though we don't have offices everywhere, we cover the entire state. Our main office is in Santa Fe at the Santa Fe Community College, and that's where Therese has her office. We have several of our advisors who are located in Albuquerque. They are at the CNM Workforce Center and also at the Hispano Chamber of Commerce. So we have 3 people at CNM Workforce Training Center, I believe on Alameda Street. And then the Hispano Chamber of Commerce is Steve Stewart, and he is on this webinar also. We have an office at the Higher Ed Center. Right now, that position is vacant. I am located at what's called the Arrowhead Center on the New Mexico State University campus in Las Cruces. So I'm a little ways away from Lanel, but that's okay. We all cover the entire state. And then we have Johnny Lodwick, who's out in Clovis. And you might notice some strategy here of where we're located. Of course, Albuquerque's our biggest city, and there are, there's a military base there, Kirtland, and there's Sandia National Labs. And then Johnny down in Clovis works a lot with Cannon Air Force Base. I'm here in Las Cruces, where we have White Sands Missile Range, Holloman Air Force Base, and I do work with Fort Bliss out in El Paso, Texas. Fort Bliss oversees a lot of the purchasing for White Sands Missile Range at this time. So I deal with Fort Bliss, Holloman, as I said. So there is some strategy to where we're located, where most of us are close to some military base or other facility. There is also WIP. If any of you are familiar with WIP down in Carlsbad, it's a DOE facility. And so we also work with WIP a lot. We do cover, as I said, the entire state. We've all driven all over this state, helping businesses, small ones in some places that we've gone, very rural places. So that's what we're here to help with. Next slide. We have what we call a PTAC roadmap of services. This is just a little graphic so you can understand what we do when a small business calls us and says, I need help with government contracting. We're going to discuss their goals. We're going to explain our services, which is counseling them, helping them with signing up on databases and things like that. We're going to research their NAICS code, see where they fall in that spectrum. Then we're going to start talking to them about SAM registration if they want to do federal contracting. And most of our clients do. They want to do state and local as well, but they're also very interested in federal. So we will help them get registered in SAM. That little animal seems to get more difficult every year for all of you that have done SAM registrations. It's always changing, keeping us on our toes. I very recently, under step 2, took off obtain a DUNS number for client because that's going away. I just took it off. That should be gone by April 4th unless the government slows things down, because we now have that UEI coming up. But as far as step 2 also, we'll talk about an SBA profile. We have bid matching that's available. It's a free service that PTAC offers, and based on NAICS codes and keywords, and the keywords are important. We match up our clients with solicitations that they may be interested in seeing. Those notices are just automatically sent to their email. They can look them over and say, yeah, I'm kind of interested in this one. No, this doesn't even fit my business model or anything. And if there are some of those bid match profile solicitations they're interested in, clients can call us and say, hey, I really want to go after this one. Can you help me understand what to do to bid on it or how to submit a proposal for this? So we help with all that. We will help people understand requests for proposals, and we won't write a proposal or bid for them. We cannot do that, but we definitely help them understand what it is they need to do. And we'll read their proposals over for them too, to have a second set of eyes, and we can see if they've left something out or they have a lot of typos and things like that that may not look too good. So we help with all of that too. Step 3, we can help with federal certifications, also marketing materials. Some of the federal certifications I'm sure you're aware of: 8A, Woman-Owned Small Business, HubZone, also Certified Veteran Enterprise certification that is currently under the VA. It will be moving under SBA in the near future. All the other certifications are under SBA, so I guess it makes sense to move the Certified Veteran Enterprise under SBA as well. We help with marketing materials, just as an example, a capabilities statement. That's important with federal contracting in particular. Most state and local don't really refer to it as that or ask for that in most cases, but the feds are really big on capability statements. So we do help our clients with that. Step 4, market research. For instance, Dynamic Small Business Search, usaspending.gov. I'll mention FPDS. Supposedly it was going away with the new SAM, but it's still out there. And the new SAM has some market research opportunities to look at too. So we help with all that. And we can review marketing materials, again, like the capability statement for our clients. We will review that with them because it is important. I've had clients whip up a really nice one and say, look, what do you think? And I'm like, let's get all the typos out of here. So that's real important, that, reviewing things for clients. And on step 5, maybe start a marketing plan. And then next steps could be just ongoing. These clients can just forever use us. Anytime they want to bid on something or do a proposal, we're here for them. A lot of our clients over the years, they get so good at this, we see them less and less as they've been in business longer and longer. And that's typical, and that's honestly not a bad thing. So we expect that. But we have clients we've had for years who still have questions or need help with something. A lot of them don't even want to mess with SAM renewal. So that's a huge thing that we do almost every single day with somebody. So for our clients in that aspect. So next slide. Okay, our services at this time are virtual and hybrid. We're slowly getting back to offices. We're not in there much, but I don't think we'll ever give up some of this webinar stuff. It's been working pretty well for us. But here's things we can do. We can determine a client's suitability for contracting. Again, we secure the necessary registrations. I've already talked about this, like SAM and whatnot. Also, other government vendor databases, such as LANL, or there's the REBA mentioned there. I'm not sure if that's misspelled. I don't know. Is it, guys? We'll help them sign up for DOT things, maybe, let's say, universities, colleges, municipalities. Again, I've already mentioned that we help with certifications. There they are, the 8A, WASB, HubZone, all of those, VA. Here's a big one. We've been tasked over the last few years with doing cybersecurity trainings. This has been huge. I don't think I even have to say that. This is huge. We do have somebody who does most of our cyber for us. She is Alethea McInerney, one of our advisors in Albuquerque. She just jumped into cyber when it became this big thing, and she has sort of specialized in it. So we let her do all the trainings. We're all able to help though, because you have to be cyber ready if you're doing federal contracting. And in fact, you can get in trouble if you're not. So just keep that in mind. There's a couple of clauses that are being thrown into most DOD and some DOE, and even trickling down to other government agencies. Cyber clauses that are thrown into contracts that if you overlook those and just think, yeah, whatever, I guess I'm okay. You can be held accountable if you sign that contract and then the government finds out you had no cybersecurity measures in place. You really do have to have that. So just to let you know, that really is just a big thing. Again, we have these marketing and networking events such as Gov to Business events. They were always in person. They've been on webinar for the last couple of years. We'll bring government agencies in and let our businesses talk with them, meet with them. Either usually it was one-on-one in person. You'd get 5-10 minutes to sit down, hand them a capability statement, tell them who you are, what you do. On these webinars that we're doing, we do breakout sessions. So our clients can go into a breakout room with some government agency. And there's usually other clients or businesses in there too. Those are not one-on-one breakout rooms, but it's a government agency with several businesses in there. And it's just an open forum where businesses can ask questions. The government agency can ask questions of the business and so forth. Again, we help with the market research. I already said that. And we identify some bidding opportunities for our clients. Some of that is through bid match. Some of that would be through SAM, let's say, other avenues as well. I did mention we help with proposal prep and review. We can help with contract performance issues after a contract award. And we can help prepare for audit. We usually get the Defense Contract Audit Agency once or twice a year to do a presentation for us. So anybody doing like DOD or whatever, DOE type contracts, if you're doing that type of thing, you may get audited by DCAA. And so this way you will know ahead of time kind of how to be prepared for that. Next slide. As I said, we do trainings as well, webinar right now. They were in person before. Some of them are kind of coming back around to that maybe in the near future. But anyway, all of our workshops are at no cost. Here's just a few of them that we do, like Intro to Government Contracting Basics, Federal Certifications Workshop, workshops about 8A, WASB, things like that, Marketing to the Government. We definitely do cybersecurity trainings. And then we have a series that we call the Contract Ready series. It's parts 1 through 5. And as you can see here, there's understanding solicitations, proposal writing, labor law compliance, estimating and pricing, contract administration, and then contract ready. You're ready to have a contract. So these 5 parts are taught as standalones. If you just are interested in one, you can take one of them. If you want all 5, you can sign up for all 5. We do them like usually we'll do parts 1 and 2 one day, and then the next week we'll do parts 3 and 4, and maybe the week after that we'll do part 5. So, but there are people that maybe don't want part 1. They think I'm far beyond that, but this labor law compliance and this estimating and pricing might be something that could help me. So as I said, these are standalone webinars, and so you can take all or just one. Next slide. Okay, there we go. You'll notice some upcoming events, and I had left one on from last week when I thought we were going to have this. So just ignore that, but at least it's something you can see what we're doing. Last week, there was a Cannon Air Force Base forecasting preview. So that took place, and Johnny Lodwick, our advisor in Cannon, participated in that. In April, here's some things we have coming up. There's an SBA VA outreach event. On the 12th, there's doing business with Sandia National Labs. On the 14th, there's a cybersecurity webinar. Something that I'm doing on the 7th that is just something that we kind of do with the VBOC, and it's nothing for our clients, but just to let you kind of know other things we do. We participate in the Boots to Business that the Veteran Business Outreach Centers do with military bases. They do this a couple times a year at various military bases for exiting military personnel. They introduce them to business ownership in case those personnel are thinking of, starting a business when they get out of the military. It's great for these exiting military people, and we participate in that. I'll be out at the spaceport on April 10th with a booth, table, whatever you want to call it, because Spaceport America is having a big open house on April 10th and allowing people like PTAC to go out there and have a table and see, you know, who comes around asking us questions. In May, we have marketing to the government, and that's in conjunction with West. So I left that on there. Sometimes we'll work with other people. West is it's like Woman Enterprise something. It's not just for women anymore, but it's still called West. It's similar to SBDC, the Small Business Development Centers. So we'll work with partners like that sometimes too. May 11th, there's a big VA federal matchmaking event. I believe that's going to be virtual. I think it's still planned to be virtual. In June, we have a Gov to Business outreach, our own, that I think it might be virtual too. Right now, we're just sort of up in the air, but that will focus on state and local. We just recently did one that was federal, and sometimes we try to, or educational, I believe. We did federal, educational, and now we're going to focus on state and local in June and try to invite municipalities, the state of New Mexico, counties, that type of thing. June 23rd, we have Intro to Government Contracting again. And that will be in conjunction with the Small Business Development Center in Los Lunas. So that's just a handful of things coming up. So you can kind of get a feel for what we do. And as I said, all these events are free. Some of them aren't open to just anybody. For instance, you know, the thing I'm doing, the Boots to Business, that's for the military personnel. But I just threw it out there so you'll know some of the other things that PTAC does. Anyway, next slide. Here's just some statistics, and this covered the year April 1st, 2020 through March 30, 2021. So that was what, a year ago maybe? Or, you know, the last couple of years. This was some statistics for that time period. We had signed up 448 new clients. We had 677 active ones already going. We had about 1,900 counseling hours. And actually, that sounds kind of low to me. I would think it was a little higher because we actually have goals, and our goals are higher than that. So I'm not sure about that. Anyway, we participated in 83 events during that time. And the dollar value of federal and state contracts that came into our clients was $91 million. So that's not shabby. Okay, next slide. And here we are, guys. I put my contact information on here. I just put mine, but if you're interested in reaching out to anybody else on the team, for one thing, all of our contact info is on our website, which is right there below my email. If you go to our website, you're going to see all of our training events. You're going to see all of our contact information. You're going to see other things about PTAC. So it's a really good website if you're interested in more knowledge of what we're doing, or you're trying to get a hold of one of my coworkers. But if you want to get a hold of them and you just want to call me or email me, that's fine. I can also get forward you their contact info or get you guys, you know, talking to one another. So if you need anything, just email me, call me. That's my cell, and I'm just using my cell these days. I'm not in the office. That's fine. You can text me, whatever. But guys, I hope this was some good information for you. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.
Hi, Karen. Hey, thank you so much. This is Tamara. We appreciate your time, and you had some fantastic information in there for our supplier partners. So thank you. I think it's super helpful information. I had one quick question on your website.
Yep.
Is there a calendar of all those events?
Yes, there is. Yep.
Okay.
We do have a calendar. Thank you, Tamara. And there's a tab that says training events. And if you click that tab, there is a calendar that shows up. And you'll see what's out there. Now, old events drop off. So sometimes it'll look like, wow, there was nothing the first couple of weeks of March. But any old events drop off of that calendar. But any events moving forward will show up on there.
Hey, thank you, Karen. And with that, I will be turning it over to Michelle Bustos, who is now in our accounts payable area as one of our accountant folks. She previously was in supplier management, and probably several of you are familiar with her if you've watched a previous video of our invoicing tips. And Michelle's going to walk you through some additional tips, tricks, and show you some screens to help you folks out. So you can take it away, Michelle.
Thank you, Tamara. As Tamara said, my name is Michelle Bustos. I am currently with the accounts payable team, formerly with supplier management. Today, I want to focus with you all on how to determine invoicing tricks and tips and how to verify some information to ensure that you're all properly set up and ready to receive payment. So the first thing that I want to touch on, as you all know, the registration process included you all completing 4 different questionnaires. And so the registration questionnaire and the qualification questionnaire were required, excuse me, to get you all transactional. And when you all became transactional, that is when ASM, when procurement was actually able to start issuing orders to you through the Ariba system. The last 2 questionnaires that you all received were the supplier location data form and the EFT authorization. And these 2 forms actually are just as important because they are what allows us in accounting to set up your pay site to ensure that when you are ready to invoice, that we can process your payment. If you're logged into Ariba and you're in your home page and you're up at the top and you're seeing Business Network with the drop-down arrow, you will come to see proposals and questionnaires. Here is the home where all your questionnaires are located. Now this, because it's a test site, doesn't have them, but I went ahead and did a screenshot of what that will look like for you. And so when you're up at the top and you click on proposals and questionnaires, you're going to see your list of questionnaires that you've completed. So as you see here, the supplier registration questionnaire gives the status of registered. So you can be confident that you are registered. You've completed that questionnaire. Then there was the qualification questionnaire, and you want to make sure that it says qualified. Now, in my screenshot, I wasn't able to capture the other 2, but just down below, you'll see another heading, and then you're going to see your supplier location data form and your EFT form. And if you look across to the status, you want to make sure that both of those forms say approved. If they don't say approved, then there's chances are that you don't have a pay site set up, and so that even if you invoice, we wouldn't be able to get that payment out to you. Some of the different statuses are pending resubmission, denied. When it's pending resubmission, that means that you submitted the form, but either our Treasury Department or our cashiers or our vendor desk decided that they needed some additional information in order before they could approve these forms. So if you could please go into your proposals and questionnaires and check to see the status and take the appropriate actions until you see that the forms have been approved. The supplier location data form requires you to attach your W-9. So as you all know, when you're registering as a new customer with somebody, or as a new supplier with somebody, they will always need to verify your tax identification number, and your W-9 needs to be completed and submitted. So that is why that form is so important. The EFT authorization requires you to either attach a voided check or a letter from your bank on bank letterhead confirming the information that you have entered in as your bank account information. So once you can see that those forms have been approved, then you can confidently know that you have completed the registration process and that you have a pay site, and that when invoices are submitted and ready for payment, providing they go through the system as they're supposed to, and there aren't any other issues, that you would be ready for payment. So I'm going to go back. To get back to your workbench, to get back to your network, you would just click on the same down arrow and go back into your Ariba network. Now, this is the home screen. And if you hit more here, these are all the tiles that you would have set up when you set up your workbench. If you're just getting started for the first time, you've not used Ariba with other customers, and you've just finished your registration process, your trading relationship has been established. And the way to establish the trading relationship is if you are a standard account, you would receive a penny PO in which you would need to go to the email where you receive that PO and hit the blue process order button and log in from that email so that then the trading relationship is established. Again, you will have to go in through the email PO that is sent to the email that's on file. If you are an enterprise account, we have to send those trading relationship requests manually. And so we do that once we know that you all are ready to be marked transactional. Once the trading relationship is established, you should be able to click on your workbench. And this workbench has already been set up. But if you're brand new, you're going to get a big blue plus sign right in the middle of the screen. And it's going to say, let's get some results, add some tiles. And from that point, if you click on the plus sign, you're going to see something that looks like this with a list of all the desired tiles that you can add. In working with suppliers frequently over the last 8 months in setting up and getting functional in Ariba, I have found that the best way to set up your workbench to make it as functional for you as possible would be to add the tile new orders. And you would come here and you would just add this, hit this plus sign, and it would automatically add it up, and then it would make this blue plus sign back available for you to hit so that you can continue choosing the rest of the tiles that you want to choose. So we're going to go new orders, orders to invoice, invoices, rejected invoices, invoices pending approval, approved invoices pending payment, and remittances. And if you think about it, if you think about the procurement process and how it moves along, you get a new order. So when the procurement buyer sends a new order to you, you confirm that order. And I'm going to stress the importance of confirming the order and reviewing the PO before you proceed to fulfill the order or whatever else you need to do. One of the issues that we are finding more and more is that the shipping information, the shipping costs are not being included in the PO, and then causing a problem when you all try to invoice for the shipping. Shipping costs must be included in the total cost of the PO when the PO is generated in order for AP to be able to pay out those shipping costs. So if your PO is for $1,000 and you have an additional $200 worth of shipping, you will not be able to bill that $200 unless it's built into the PO. So I know a lot of people skip over the confirming of the PO and just jump right into invoicing, and it's caused a lot of issues and a lot of invoices from being processed because we cannot process a payment for a PO that is more than the PO. So I would encourage you to utilize this new orders tile and go in there and really review the PO, make sure it matches, make sure it includes the shipping before and confirm it. If at that point you realize, oh wait, the shipping was left off, or wait, we forgot to let Lanol know that there's going to be shipping, then you need to go back to the requester, back to the person who initiated the purchase request, and have them update the PO at that time to include those shipping charges, so that when you confirm the PO, you're confirming it for the correct amount. So once you confirm those new orders, you will see that then it will then become an order to invoice. After you invoice, it will show up in your invoices. That means that you've submitted the invoice to Los Alamos, and one of two things can happen. The invoice can be rejected, or the invoice can get approved, and that notification will show up in one of these two tiles. Once the invoice is approved and it gets put into the pay queue, it integrates over to our payment system, and then it will become an approved invoice pending payment. And then, of course, at the end, when we generate a payment to you, it'll come under remittances. So this is a good process flow of how you can watch your new order come all the way to the end result of it being a paid invoice. One of the things to know also, if you are having trouble seeing your POs, if you know your trading relationship has been established, but you're like, I just can't find these POs, Ariba always defaults to the last 31 days automatically. So if you have a PO that was generated back in September or October that now has finally come to pass, you shipped the goods or you've provided the services, you will need to go into the orders to invoice or into any one of these, and edit the filter. And to edit the filter, you click on the blue edit filter button, and if you go 3 fields in to the creation date, you can change it from the last 31 days to the last 90 days if you're confident that the PO was sent to you in the last 90 days. If you're unsure when that PO originated, I would always say go back to the last 365, because that captures everything since our go live date. And if you hit apply, then you can see how now it changes the findings, and it changes what you can see in terms of your POs. We do find a lot of suppliers reaching out saying that they can't see their POs, they can't invoice because they can't see them. And a lot of times it's just a matter of going in and changing that filter. But as you notice, it only changed the filter on that one tile and not on all the tiles. So depending on what you're looking for, you would need to go in and change the filter on each one. So if you have a new order that you haven't confirmed yet, and maybe it came in more than 31 days ago, and you're just barely getting around to confirming it, you would then have to change the filter in that area as well. And then you can always save the filter so that you don't have to do that every time you log in. So let's look at a new order for the order confirmation. As I said, it is best practice that you confirm these orders as you receive them, so that we can all be sure that we're on the same page for the total of the PO before anything gets shipped and there's charges that weren't included. 2, when you create the order confirmation, it also, that serves as a purpose for you as the supplier, to let us know when the estimated delivery date of this order will be. And so when you hit the order confirmation and you confirm the entire order, the only required field on this particular form is the estimated delivery date. So you would put in the estimated delivery date, verify again. I'm always one to verify and double verify and triple verify, make sure everything looks good. This is exactly what you know that you're going to be sending out to us. That's the exact price that you are agreeing to. If there's supposed to be shipping, you make sure that shipping is included. And then you would hit next. And then here is where it just kind of gives you another review screen, but you would hit the submit button here, and that would send us the notification that you received our order, you are confirming it, you are accepting it, and that's what you're going to invoice for. So I'm not going to hit submit because we are in test mode, and this does tie to our production in some ways. And so I'm just going to go ahead, instead of hitting submit as you would, I'm going to hit exit to get back out of here. So now you've confirmed the order. I'm going to take you back to the menu. Now you've confirmed the order. So now you're ready now you have an order to invoice. Okay. And so now you've shipped us the goods, you're ready to invoice, or you've completed partial of the service that you've contracted to do. You could go into your orders to invoice. You can choose the EP by clicking on the blue EP number, and you're going to get basically what looks like your purchase order. And up at the top, you're going to see create invoice. If you click on the down button, it's going to always be a standard invoice. Now you can create credit memos, but if you're just submitting an initial invoice, it's always going to be a standard invoice. And so on this, what you're doing here is you're generating an invoice in the Ariba portal. So you more than likely you have an invoice that you've generated from your accounting software. So you would enter in your invoice number and the invoice date. Now, for any of you that have been struggling getting invoices entered into the system for one reason or another, Ariba will not let you backdate the invoice for more than 5 days. So it's probably just better at that point just to use the date that you entered. That you're entering it. So today's date. So I'm going to put in a number. You would fill in the invoice date. All these other fields, none of them are required. You can choose to utilize the service description for something internally if that's what you choose, but you don't need to provide a supplier tax ID, your supplier account number, any customer reference. None of these fields do you have to worry about completing. It's mostly just the invoice number and the invoice date. And again, if internally for your use, you want to utilize this service description, I've seen some suppliers do that, and it makes them very happy in it, and they're able to kind of track things when they're getting remittances or when they're going back and reviewing POs in their Ariba portal. But it is not a required field to submit an invoice. The add to header section of the invoice is where you would add an attachment. So if you were providing a service that required you to provide backup documentation for your approvers, this is where you would do that. You could also attach PDFs of your invoices, I guess, if you so chose to. But this is where you would attach any document pertaining to the invoice. If you hit attachment, it's going to open up. You're going to be able to choose the file. Let me see if I can choose something here just for the sake of showing. So here you can choose the file. You would add the attachment. After you choose the file, that's not enough to add the attachment. So you would add the attachment. And then you would then have to make sure that you put a check mark to add it to the invoice. So it is a couple of steps. It's not just choosing the file and getting the file name here, but it requires you to add the attachment and then to choose the attachment once it's been added. I don't want that to go, so I'm going to delete that attachment. Next, you see the lines of your purchase order. Chances are your purchase order may have 1 line or it may have 10 lines. It just depends on what you what that particular good or service that you're providing to us. If you are billing the full invoice, if we ordered some goods from you and you shipped all the goods at once and you are ready to bill us, to invoice us for the whole amount, basically you would just make sure everything looks good and you would hit next. If you sent us a partial shipment, if we ordered 10 of something and you shipped us 5, here is where you can change the quantity. And you can do one of 2 things. You can click a blue check mark to include that line. If it's only a 1-line PO, then you wouldn't have to do anything. It's going to recognize the line. But if you had multiple lines, you can put a blue check mark, or you could use this include off and on button to include the line. So if you were doing a partial invoice, or if you were invoicing for a partial PO, you could determine what lines you were going to invoice for. You could turn the line on, turn that to on or off, or you could simply put a blue check mark in the box at the left-hand side. If the box where the quantity is editable, you can change the quantity if you didn't ship the full quantity. If you're providing a service and you're doing milestone payments, or you're doing like, you've only completed partial of what you're doing, then you would have this editable box around the price, and that's where you would modify to the dollar amount that you are trying to invoice for. Once you're satisfied with everything you've entered here, you would hit the next button. This gives you one last opportunity to review everything, make sure everything looks good. More importantly, make sure that your amount matches what you are wanting to invoice. As long as everything looks good, you would hit the submit button and your invoice would be submitted. I'm not going to submit this invoice because it actually does create invoices in our production. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete out of there. And so as you can see, the invoicing part of Ariba, actually, once the setup is done, once your pay site is set up, once we're sure that the PO is set up correctly, that goods are set up to have receipts, services are set up, once all that is done, then the invoicing process is actually not too difficult. What we see more difficulties in is more those questionnaires that aren't completed, knowing how to utilize the workbench and how to set it up, and knowing the filters, ensuring that you are pulling up information from far back enough that you capture all the POs that might have been generated, prior to the 31 days. Another issue is permissions. So if the system administrator for your organization would be the only one that can go in to modify permissions. But if you've added a user, or if you're an added user and you're the person responsible for invoicing, it's going to be very important that you have the permissions associated with invoicing. So again, I'll stress that only the contact administrator can make these changes. If you're not sure who your contact administrator is, if it's not you, you can always click here and it will tell you who that administrator is, so that you can reach out to them to have them update your permissions, or to verify whether they have given you everything that you would need to do invoicing. So to check that, the administrator would go into settings. They would go into users and manage roles. This is where you create the different roles by assigning them permissions. So I'm just going to show you the one that's been created for invoicing that we did. And the most important permissions for anybody who's attempting to do invoices is going to be this invoice generation, the inbox and order access. And then, of course, if you are also the person that's going to be keeping up with the remittances and the payments, they would want to give you the payment profile as well. This access proposals and questionnaires, again, that's up to your contact administrator, but that allows the person with this permission to fill out those questionnaires that I spoke about at the beginning, the supplier location data and the EFT authorization. But a lot of times the contact administrator wants to do that because those are documents that require a lot of the business's information. But you know, they're welcome to give this access to whoever they see fit. But for invoice generation, for completing invoices and submitting invoices through Ariba, it's going to be invoice generation and inbox and order access. Let's talk a little bit about whether you have a standard account or an enterprise account. Standard account is the free account that's offered by Ariba. In order to establish a trading relationship with Lanol, you would, and if you have a standard account, you would receive a penny PO. It looks just like a regular PO, but it is just for 1 penny. And you would process the order from that blue process order button in order to establish that trading relationship. Once you hit the process order button and you follow the steps to log in, automatically that trading relationship is established, and you should start to see all of your POs or anything that's been done for Los Alamos National Laboratory within your Ariba portal. The enterprise account is an account that is for businesses that do certain amounts of transactions, certain amount of dollars. That's all determined by Ariba. But if you have an enterprise account, we have to send you a trading relationship request. Now, one of the things that has come up more recently is we've sent the TRR and yet there's still not a connection. There's still not a trading relationship and suppliers still aren't able to see their POs. One way to know if that trading relationship is established would be for you to go back to those initials, go to your settings, go to customer relationships, and you should be able to see the Los Alamos National Laboratory right in here. If you have the manually review all relationship requests, you're going to have to manually approve that trading relationship request, which could be the cause of you not being able to see your POs if we've already sent you a TRR. If you're comfortable with it, again, this has to be a system administrator. You might want to go ahead and click on the automatically accept all relationships, because then automatically when we send the TRR, that trading relationship is established, and you should also then be able to see your POs within your Ariba portal. I've had a couple of instances this week come up where it was an enterprise account. The trading relationship had been established. They were still unable to see their POs because some of those POs were sent early on before the trading relationship was established. It may require you to go into your email and find where the email of the PO was originally sent to you. And I found that the easiest way to do that is just to put the EP number in your search bar in your email, pull up the email, click the process order button on just one PO, even if you have 10 outstanding, if you just do it for one PO and you log in from that process order button, it will populate your Ariba portal with all your POs. Prior to establishing the trading relationship on an enterprise account, if we were emailing you the POs, for some reason, when we did establish that trading relationship, it did not, Ariba doesn't work backwards. So anything that we did prior to making that TRR, sending that TRR request, is not going to recognize that you had a trading relationship. So therefore, you would have to go into your email and process the order from there. That's kind of come up a couple of times for me in the last couple of weeks. And so I think that's important to share here. I've not shared that information before, but even if you have an enterprise account, you know you can see Los Alamos as a customer. You've checked all your default dates, and you still aren't, you going back 365, you're still not seeing them. I would attempt to search your email, especially the administrator, because it's more than likely that it was that administrator that got that original or one of those POs. And since they're the ones that have the authorization to establish the trading relationship, I would go in and search your email, search for the EP number, and then hit that blue process order. You won't have to do it more than once. You'll just have to do it one time on one PO. And then from that point going forward, all your POs will come directly to your Ariba portal. And again, that is only for enterprise accounts. So I think with that, I think again that I just want to reiterate the supplier location data form is super important to ensure that it's been received and approved. So I would go into your proposals and questionnaires and check that. If you want EFT authorization, if you want to be paid by EFT, I would go in and make sure that that's been completed and approved. That does have to be completed by an authorized signer on the bank account. And so you may have to add them as a user just to complete that form, even if that's the only thing they will ever do in Ariba. But because there is a question on there that asks, are you an authorized signer? And you have to answer yes or no. If you answer no, you will have to provide the name of the person who is. If we don't have your EFT authorization form in and we have your supplier location data, we can still process payments. They will just go to you via a check. The other thing is your functionality on your workbench is going to be what makes you successful in getting invoices submitted. Again, reviewing and confirming your new orders to ensure that if there's shipping costs that need to be included, that you catch that right away when the order is placed, as opposed to when you're trying to invoice and you're not able to invoice for those shipping charges, because that too can cause delays in your payments. And I think for right now, that's about what I have. I'm going to open it up for some questions. I want to thank you all again for signing in and joining our forum. I'm hoping that with these demonstrations, we can help get these invoicing issues and everything that we have going on to a better place, where things are flowing a little bit more smoothly. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we will definitely do our best to address those timely for you. So with that, I'm going to stop share. Actually, I'm not going to stop sharing. I'll just start taking questions if there's any questions.
Hi, Michelle. So I think we're getting some questions sent privately to the host in the chat instead of a Q&A, so I can just start reading some of those off if you'd like.
Okay.
Let's see. So the first one is, how long does it take once an invoice is approved to be funded?
I'm assuming they mean to be paid. And so usually for non-catalog, the terms are for non-catalog orders are net 30. I do know because of how we process payments in AP, they generally don't go out the full 30 days. But once you submit the invoice and the invoice has gone through all the proper channels, all the proper approvals, it does go into the pay queue, and it can take up to 30 days because I guess that is what the net terms are. But I have seen that they are paid usually about a week or so prior to that.
Okay, and the next one is, how does an invoice get lost or show up in the wrong queue?
I'm not sure what that question means. Can they clarify a little bit more, maybe by putting?
Yeah, we can move on to the next one. I'm not sure if that was in reference to something that you were specifically saying at the time. If we can get a little bit more clarification in the Q&A on that question, that would be helpful, I think. Next question, what happens if the wrong manager is named in Ariba for invoice approval?
So then we have to go in, and I believe it's the requester, or and Trish, you might have it help me. I don't know if you can help me answer this, but I don't. Is it ASM or is it the requester that has to update those approvers?
Yeah, I'm not certain who in LANL can go in and update or change the approval flow, but I do know that that is something that's possible. I'm not sure if there's anybody else on the call that knows the answer to that.
I want to say that I think it's the procurement desk. You know, and in ops, that has to go in and change those, but I'm not 100% sure. But to answer your question, the approver will have to be changed to the current manager or whoever it is that can approve the invoice. So if the person is no longer with the group, they've left LANL, and they have an invoice sitting in there waiting to be approved, I've had to reach out to have those approvers changed so that the invoice can be approved and move through the process.
Okay, so another question is, so if a vendor goes to submit an invoice and the line shows $0, does that mean we need to confirm the order first and then try to invoice?
No, if it's just one line that says $0 and not the whole PO, you're probably going to have to go back to your requester to have them update the PR, because I don't believe it will let you invoice with a 0 line item. I guess I would question why would there be a line in the PO with 0? So you would probably need to get more information from the requester, and chances are, to the best of my knowledge, something would need to be corrected.
And I think you might have already gone over this next question, but it's, how do we set up more users? Also, if one department at one location completes the order and another department at a different location completes invoices, how do we proceed?
So that kind of comes down to the first question in setting up users. A lot of organizations have different areas that do different things. So there's the sales department or whatever that confirms the orders, and then accounting goes in and invoices. And so to add, if you could look at my screen again, I'm going to go. If you go to your drop down menu and you go to settings and you go to users, before you can add a user, you're going to have to add a role. So if you hit the plus sign all the way here in the middle of the screen, it's going to ask you for the name of the role, not necessarily the name of the person, but like, is this the accounting department? Is this the invoicer? Is this, what role do they play in your organization? So you would name the role, and then you would go through the list of permissions to decide what permissions they need for the responsibility level of their role. Once you do that, you would hit save, and then you're going to see the role come up in here. So as you can see, we made one for invoicing. Now to add the user, you would go next door to manage users. You would also come all the way to the right-hand side and hit the plus sign. And here's how you would add a user. So you would make their username, and usually what I recommend, the username has to be in the form of an email, but it does not have to be a working email. But it's always easier if you can keep the username, the person's username and their email address the same. So you would put in their username, you would put it in again as their email address, you would put in their first and last name. I highly recommend that you all put in good working telephone numbers, direct lines if possible, or at least something where if we need, so right now I'm working on a project where I'm reaching out to suppliers who have not been invoicing in Ariba, and they've been submitting invoices in other ways to try to assist them. And if I can't tell you how many non-good phone numbers I come across, or phone numbers that go like to like a generic kind of answering system, and then it's kind of hard to reach the person, to get the person. So if at all, this information integrates over to Ariba on our side, if at all possible, especially for somebody like accounting or invoicing, if you can put a direct number, that sure does make things a lot easier on us if we're trying to reach out to you for an issue with an invoice, an issue with the payment, or whatever else. But so then you would put in their first name, their last name, their phone number, and then you would check the box for the role that you just created. So you would check that box and then hit done. What that's going to do is that's going to generate an email to that person, and it's going to be with their user. It's going to generate two emails. One will have their username. The other one will have a temporary password. They'll need to log in with their temporary password, change the password then to a permanent password, and then they will have access to Ariba to get in to do the invoicing. So that's kind of how you separate those when you have different departments taking care of different parts of the process. Next question.
Okay, I did want to just mention real quick, we have a lot of questions coming in privately to the host in the chat box. You probably have a better chance of getting these answered because we do have quite a few panelists on the call. If you go into the Q&A section and enter your question there. If you're not sure how to find the Q&A section, if you click View on the top of your menu in your WebEx window, then you click Panels. You should be able to find the Q&A panel in that area, just so that we can have kind of a few more eyes on your questions and be sure to get them answered. Michelle, I know we're kind of towards the end now, but if you have time for just a couple more questions. Let's see, I had one and then I lost it. Can you go over the penny PO versus enterprise TRR process again?
Sure. So up at the if you log into your Ariba, up at the top, it's going to tell you whether you have a standard account or an enterprise account. If you have a standard account, then when you became transactional so that we could submit orders to you through the Ariba portal, you would have been sent a penny PO. And that penny PO needed to be processed just like you would a regular PO in order to establish the trading relationship. Once you processed that penny PO, then automatically the trading relationship is established, and then you should be able to then see any future POs or any previous POs that would have been sent to your company. The trading relationship is for enterprise. The TRR is for enterprise accounts. And within enterprise accounts, we have to go in. When I say we, supplier management has to go in to another system to actually generate the TRR. And what that is so they go in, it's called AN Buyer, Ariba Network Buyer. They find your organization and they request the relationship. As long as you have the button here in customer relationships set to automatically accept all relationships, once they hit that button to request the relationship is made and you're good to go. If you have it on manual, then you, I believe, get a notification and you'll see it, I believe, in here in pending. And you will need to go in here. It'll come up here and you will have to go in and manually approve that trading relationship. Next question.
Okay, so there's another question. What needs to be done when a service is coded as a good?
So you need to go back to the requester and have them modify the purchase request so that they can correct the problem, because you chances are you will have issues with invoicing, because with the good, the Ariba would be expecting a receipt from the warehouse indicating that they received the goods before we could pay the invoice. And if it was a service that you provided, you wouldn't have that requirement, and so we wouldn't be able to pay the invoice without that receipt. So go back to your requester and have them correct the purchase request.
And then there's a few questions asking for contact information for, various questions if a supplier wants to inquire about the status of an invoice or expedite payment, anything like that. Can you just give the emails that suppliers should reach out to in those cases?
So, I'm not, if you're going to inquire about an invoice, you can email AP customer service at lanl.gov. If you have a question regarding your registration or your setup or anything pertaining to your questionnaires, you would email Ariba suppliers at lanl.gov. One thing I want to mention before we go is that if you're trying to invoice against an EP number, that automatically is going to tell you that that's an Ariba purchase order, and that the invoicing has to be done through the Ariba portal. So with those invoices, you don't need to email those invoices to invoices@lanl.gov. We're not able to process those. We would then just direct you to entering those into Ariba. So any invoices for EPs need to be entered through the Ariba portal and not sent to invoices@lanl.gov. Now, if you have older contracts, older POs that haven't been migrated over to Ariba, and those POs would probably start with a 5 or a 6 or some sort of number, you can email those invoices to invoices@lanl.gov. You need to ensure that the PO is referenced on the invoice, and it only allows for one PDF attachment. So if it's multiple pages that you need to email over, make them into one PDF. So that it doesn't get rejected. If you submit an invoice in Ariba, you don't need to email invoices@lanl.gov. It'll all go through the Ariba system. And if you've submitted invoices through invoices@lanl.gov, and now you're finding out that therefore POs that are in Ariba, you would need to go back and enter those invoices into Ariba. So again, the only invoices that should go to invoices@lanl.gov should be if you're invoicing against a PO that starts with the number 5, 6 is what I've seen mostly. I guess it could be anything, but any POs that start with the number, any POs that start with EP, those are Ariba specific POs, and those need to be invoiced in Ariba. And you don't need to send those invoices to invoices@lanl.gov.
Hi, Trish and Michelle, it's Tamara, and I think with that, we'll wrap it up. We have to keep to our commitment of our scheduled time. And if there are more questions, folks, we are able to capture those, Trish, correct? You can capture those in the chat and we can circle back as needed. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Okay. We will do that for you all as well. In addition, you can always email us at aribasuppliers@lanl.gov. Specifically, if you have something urgent and you need a request now, you can also email myself. It is tgreenwood@lanl.gov, so Tamara Greenwood@lanl.gov. Feel free to do that. But with that, we will close it. Again, we intend to run these monthly, so we'll be up here next month. Let me verify the date for you. Third Wednesday of the month. Let's see what the third Wednesday of April is. We're looking at the 20th of April. So the 20th of April, we will be back on and answering your questions. And in the interim, thank you for your partnership, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.